Hey, can y'all hear me? If you can hear me, you can either type in the chat box or unmute your mic and just let me know you can hear me before we get started.
I can hear you just fine.
Awesome. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. I have 6:30 on my phone. So this is the record book workshop. And so record books is not new to the program, but a fairly popular subject. And then basically they're used to teach our kids how to keep records of their experience in the 4-H program. So there's different purposes for the record book. So it allows kids to track how they've grown in the program. It also basically just teach them record keeping skills that they're going to need, not only through the 4-H project, but also when they get a job or when they go to college, taking good notes, having your dates down, setting goals. And then also it helps with them with writing important documents and things like that. Also provide an opportunity for competition on the county and district and state level. And most of our kids that do record books throughout their 4-H experience, they use this particular book to apply for scholarships, to apply for jobs, to get letters of recommendations. They usually provide either the teacher or a county agent an instant with their record book showing what they've done as far as community service or leadership. And so they can either use it for a resume, use it for a scholarship application, and use it for a college application as well. So they're very useful, not only in their first experience, but also in their overall experience transitioning to adulthood. So, how do we start off with our record book? We usually start off with goal setting. And basically, what that means is when you first start off every 4-H year, you want to pick a project area that you want to concentrate on. So we do have kids that do multiple projects, but with the record book and submitting your record book, you're only allowed to pick one main project area. So I encourage kids to pick one main project area that they're going to be working on throughout the 4-H year and come up with at least 3 goals that they want to reach for that 4-H year. So that could either be, if let's just say we're doing food nutrition, that could either be learning new chopping techniques, trying different recipes from different cultures, or learning how to bake a certain type of cake. So just setting goals for your particular project. And then once you have your goals set, you're going to start journaling and writing down what do you plan on doing differently than you did the previous year, or if it's your first year, what are you going to do your first year to get to those goals. So you write all that down, write all that out, and then you're going to reflect. And towards the end of the year, that's when we reflect. So what went right, what went wrong? Did you accomplish your goals? If you didn't, what was the problem? What was the hindrance? What happened that you weren't able to accomplish them? And if you did, what particular learning experience did you have that helped you get to your overall end goal? So, just to get into the actual logistics of the record book. So this is the basically record book at a glance. I'm going to try to share something new. Let's see if I can find it. Let's see. Let's go here. All right, so this is the family guide. So the family guide is available on the Texas 4-H website. And also this PowerPoint is available on the Texas 4-H website. But when it comes to record books at a glance, so we're about to go over like basically what the record book look like, but this is the most important page. This page breaks down what you are supposed to have in your record book based on your age. So what division do you fall under determines how much information you need in your record book. So I will send this out to you guys that are tuned, like that's on the call. I'll send out this whole document so you can look over it. But this is just a real quick checklist of what you need based on your division level in your actual record book. So we can go over the different parts of the actual record book that you turn in. And let's do, before we get started with doing that, let's talk about a couple of tips of how do we encourage kids to keep records. So tips on basically where do you start when it comes to keeping records of your 4-H year. So there's a lot of different ways that we encourage kids to keep records. One of the more old-fashioned ways is basically a note card file. So having a little box of note cards and writing out different events that you attended, whether it be a club meeting or a workshop, or you baked the cake for the first time, whatever event that goes towards your goal that's taking place, you can write that out and keep them in a box so you'll know the date and time, and you have that for your record book. A more newer way to do it, we do have an app that I encourage kids to use that's called the 4-H Livestock Record. Now it has the word livestock in it, but you're able to, edit the app to put in whatever project that your project is, and basically you go in and you record what's happening on that particular date. The easiest way to do it though, and I encourage families to do, is just to take a lot of pictures with your cell phone. And when you take a picture with your cell phone, it basically date stamps that particular photo, and you have these photos as well as a date when you did the activity, but you also have these photos to put inside of your portfolio and your story that's included in the record book. So you could either do it the old school way by actually writing down notes, and that kind of goes under journaling, getting a spiral notebook and writing down every event. Or you can just take a lot of pictures and have it in your phone already saved with that particular event and the date stamp on that photo. Or you can download a record keeping app, and like, for example, like I said, the 4-H livestock record app that we have that we encourage people to use, that you can kind of edit and put your own project information in as well. So once we have all our records, aligned, and we've been doing it throughout the year, taking a lot of photos, and we have that information, it's time to condense that information into the actual record book. And when I say record book, it's an actual book that you turn into our office to be judged, or just to turn into us so we can look at it and possibly critique it and give you advice to better help you in the program to grow more, and give you different advice as far different opportunities to help. But we usually have the record book contest, and that's the competition side of it. And then you're able to turn in your book to be judged by. We usually have parents judge the books in the different categories, and you're able to go on to district to compete. So the first page in the record book is going to be the check sheet, and that's just the sheet that you have in the front just to make sure you have all the items that's required. So you have the check sheet, the personal information page, the 4-H story and portfolio, and then you have the Texas 4-H report forms. You have the personal information page that just has personal information and that requires the agent signature as well as the parent signature at the bottom. And then you have your 4-H story and photo portfolio. Last year, a lot of people forgot to actually input their 4-H story. They just went directly into the report forms. So the 4-H story is what it's called, a story. So you're literally telling us a story about your 4-H experience for the year. So make sure you include these different bullet points, and all this information is in the actual guide. So information about yourself and your family and your community. Why did you join 4-H? Like I stated, having those project goals clearly stated in your story is always a plus. And basically, what has 4-H done for you? So how did it help you become a better leader or a citizen? Or what have you learned through community service or leadership activities? And then by setting those goals, did you gain new interests? And how did it influence your future plans in 4-H or your career goals? So all that is included in the story, and your story length, like the actual pages is determined by what division you're in. So that's when you use that record book at a glance worksheet to make sure you are having the right number of pages and meeting the minimum and not going over the maximum requirement for your particular age division. As well as you want to include photos in your story. So you want actual photos of the 4-H doing things, winning awards, working on their project, even if they're in the kitchen, if you're food nutrition, a lot of photos of them in the kitchen working on their project. So you want to include all of this in the 4-H story and photo portfolio. And that's going to be a part of your record book as well. And then after the story, which is going to be a couple of pages, you're going to have your report forms. And so this particular slide just breaks down what is the guidelines. So text double space, minimum 10-point font. And like I said, you find out how many pages you're limited to based on the book summary page, and then the photos are placed throughout the story. So you have two ways of doing it. I like reading books with the photos inside of the story, or you can write the story and then have photos in the back of the story. But like I said, I recommend as an agent having the photos actually inside of the story. If you're doing photography as your project, you don't get extra number of pages just for photos. You want to include those photos in your story as well, especially if you competed on the county or district level. Are there any questions before I go into the report forms?
No, I don't have any questions.
Okay, so the report forms are for all the same age divisions, and they request the same content. The only difference is the number of allowed entries based on your division. So, and with the report forms as well as with the story, you want to make sure that you're focusing on the current year, especially if you're a junior. You want to be focusing on the current year or the previous year, however long you've been in that division. So juniors, you're going to be a junior for 3 years. So you can either have the current year and 2 previous years to focus on. The same thing with intermediate. Once you become a senior, you're able to be in the program for up to 10 years, but when it comes to the record book, you don't want to go more than 3 years. So you can have your current year plus 3 previous years. The same thing with intermediate. You're going to talk about your current year, and if you've been in 4-H since you were a junior, you can talk about the 3 previous years. But you don't want to talk more than 4-year experience when you're doing your record book. And that's very important because, like I said, you're limited to a number of entries allowed in each report form. So you want to be selective of what you choose to talk about in your report forms. So the agent or the person that's judging your book can get an overall feel of what all you've done throughout your 4-H career. So the first section is going to be the 4-H project experience. 4-H project experience actual form is blank. Let me see if I can pull these forms up. Oh, no. So these are the website where you find information for Texas Forage. I'm doing too much. Save. Can y'all see that?
I don't see anything. I
Okay.
I was on the website earlier though.
Are you on the website earlier?
Yeah. I think let's see.
Let's see. I'll try to do new share. Here we go. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. So the report forms, basically these are the forms you're going to print out. So if you notice on this Word document, they start off with a checklist, and you basically just print. You do your work inside of the Word document, and then when you fill out all the information, you can just print it out. But when it comes to report forms, you get something like the section 1 is basically a blank page. So a lot of people will take the time to actually like write out paragraphs, but what I want to see as an agent is for you to have charts telling me, or making charts and putting them into this blank form, and going into details about your project versus just typing words in there. So I want to see actual charts inside of there. So when you make the charts, what you want to include, and this could be up to 4 project areas, you want to include basically what your project, how you've grown, what you've done, and what you learned. So, and when we say learning experiences, for each project experiences, that can range for a variety of things, like something as simple as watching a YouTube video to help you with your project area is considered a learning experience. So that's something you need to take record of. If you watch a YouTube video on a particular day, you learn something new to help you with your project, you might want to jot that down or put that in your notes in your phone. Or if you're working on a recipe, or you've done different recipes and it is included in your project. And I'm using food nutrition because it's the easiest one for me to give good examples. But if you worked on different recipes and they have different elements that you are, that's one of your goals, you want to write that down and include that in the chart. If you spent money on new supplies, so if you're working on new chopping techniques and you went out and bought a new knife, that is something that you need to take note of as well, and make a chart for expenses. So the money you spent on food, learning the new method, you can make a chart for different videos you watched. You can make a chart for different workshops you went to. So you make all those charts and you put them in that particular blank form, and you're able to fill up that form and make it look real nice, so we can easily find out what your different 4-H project experiences is. So you're not limited to just your main project in this particular page. If you have multiple projects that you've done, you can add those projects. Just make sure there's a distinct separation between projects so it's easy for us to find the information. So, and you see that for juniors, the max pages for this particular section is 2. For intermediates, it's 3. And for seniors, it's 4. And then you have leadership. So there's different types of leadership. There's promotional leadership, volunteer leadership, appointed, and elected leadership. And so just depending on what type of leadership, promotional leadership is taking the lead on promoting the program. So if we offer a promotional event and we need clubs to come out and set up a booth, if your club does that and you go out into the community and promote, that's considered promotional leadership. Volunteer leadership is you volunteering to take on a leadership role. That's either volunteering to lead a workshop or volunteering to say a pledge at a club meeting. So anything you're volunteering to do to help your club is a form of volunteer leadership. Appointed and elected are self-explanatory. So if you're appointed to be a club officer or you're elected to be a club officer or serve on a club committee, all of that is appointed and elected leadership. And you want to include all those instances in this particular section. In this section, you have text boxes, so you're able to write the date, the type of leadership it was, as well as what you accomplished in your role. So we use this section for our leadership experience, and then there's a section 3 for community service. So any community service projects that you have participated in, and they give good examples for us like food drives, cleanups, donations, education. The table, like I said, includes the year, your role, the activity, the importance, and the impact. So for instance, if you did, a club did a food donation and you donated like a box of canned goods, I would weigh the canned goods and be like, I donated 20 pounds of canned goods, and what impact did that make? So where did those canned goods go? If they went to a church, how many families were affected by that particular community service project? So you want to be able to have all that information recorded, written down somewhere, put in your phone, so when it's time to do your record book, you don't have to fish for that information. All that important information is there. And at the bottom, in the green section, it tells you how many pages each division is allowed with the amount of entries for this particular section. Then we have the other 4-H project section. So this could be confusing for some people. If you're a senior, I would expect you to have various amounts of projects. And this would be a section for you to include other projects that you've been in. So you have your project experience. So that's projects that you've worked on and have competed in, or where goals were set in. And then you have other projects that you kind of took that main project and ventured out into. So a good example would be photography. So with photography, everyone can do photography. As long as you have a project area, you're able to take a picture of it, no matter what it is. And with all the categories we have in photography, you should be able to submit a photo somewhere in a photography contest. So another 4-H project for a lot of our kids is photography, as well as public speaking or educational presentation. Those particular projects, you can talk about whatever your project is and do an educational presentation or public speaking, and you can take a photo of whatever your project is and do photography project. So those two project areas usually go in this particular section. And like I said, you're limited on a number of pages, but this is going to look similar to your 4-H project experience. But it's just up to you to be able to decipher between the two. So with the first section, you're going to have things you invested money in, things that you set goals for, the projects you set goals for, the projects you invested money in. Those are the projects you want to put in your section 1. The other projects that kind of developed because of those particular projects, you're going to put in section 4. So, and then you have section 5, which is for recognition and awards. So any award you receive, whether it be at the county fair or county roundup or at the district level, you want to be sure to put them in this chart. Or any recognition you receive on your club level or in your community based off of what you've done in the 4-H program, you want to make sure you put it in the chart. And like I said, you have to keep records of all the things you do, so you won't have to think too hard. You can just go and find that particular information. And then we have non-4-H activities. So we know a lot of our kids do multiple things. So if you do multiple things at your school or at church or other community organizations, such as like Girl Scouts, or you're a cheerleader, or you play volleyball, or you play basketball, you're going to include all those things in this particular section, and you're able to go up to 4 years of activity. And you only get one page though. So this is the opportunity for you to show how busy you really are by showing us all the other activities that you participate in general. And then, of course, we want you to explore college and career exploration. If you took a tour of a school, or you went on a field trip and it's something that you went to inspire you with your career, or inspire you with going to a certain college, you want to make sure you take notes of this. And this is really important for our seniors, making sure that they are out there looking for different colleges, and also looking for different things that help them pick what career they want to do when they grow up. So, what will the judges look for? So when we look for the book, we're looking for learning activities that take place outside the 4-H club and project groups. So that can range, like I said, from various things, county workshops, YouTube videos, taking tours of grocery stores, just being out in the community, having a mentor that helps you with your project, anything of those things. That's what we're looking for when we look for certain learning activities. So this is the score sheet, and this is pretty self-explanatory. So when you're doing your record book, make sure you refer to the score sheet so you can make sure you're hitting the bullet points that are highlighted to make sure you're maxing out on all the points that you can receive. Now, this is only for competition. Like I said, you can do a record book and not submit it to be judged. You can do a record book and submit it to our office for us to review and give you tips on how to improve on your 4-H experience for the following year. So record book covers. So there's an official record book cover that we sell at our office, I believe for $5. But you can submit your record book in a binder or a folder. It doesn't have to be the official record book cover. You can also order your own off of the 4-H Mall. But we do have some in our office for sale, but you don't have to have it in that particular cover in order for it to count or go on to district. I accept record books in binders and 3-prong plastic folders preferably. So just general guidelines. We want to make sure if we're handwriting our story that our writing is legible, if we're making sure we use proper grammar and punctuation, text margins, paper type creativity, and font. So we do encourage you to be creative with your record book, but we do want it to be a readable story. So making sure you're using proper grammar and punctuation is also important. We don't usually take points off for it, but we do look for a certain standard, especially when you get into those older ages between intermediate and senior. We expect a certain level of proper English and format. So photo books include the same number of photos as any other category. Old record book forms will not be included in any book. So previously you would include old record book forms, but that's no longer necessary. So they have updated the categories. They're the same categories from the previous year, and all that is available on the state website to see the different categories. The categories are also in the family guide. So these are the categories. You guys can look through those at your own time. We only have 10 minutes left. But so senior record books have the opportunity to go to the Texas 4-H Leadership Conference, and that's for senior 4-Hers only. So that's 9th through 12th grade. So once you get to state and you win first place, you're able to go to the Texas 4-H Leadership Conference, but you do have to pay for it. So, county updates. We have a new county due date, which is June 1st, 2020. We're going to have another spring record book training on March 31st. And then every year we have a record book revision night. So the record book revision night is pretty important. It's when the child brings in their record book they've been working on, and an agent is able to sit down with them and see where they're at and give pointers on where they need to go in order to make it a good record book. So on May 5th, we're having that record book revision night. All agents in the office will be in, and you're able to bring in your record book that you've been working on, and we're able to read the story, look at the report forms, and give tips and pointers on how to improve your overall record book in time for the new county date. So the new county date is June 1st, simply because district is requiring us to turn in our record book summaries for judging for district by June, I believe, 7th. So I'm having the record book due earlier, and then we're going to have judging probably that same week. They're due on the Monday, and we usually have judging on a Wednesday and Thursday. And I encourage parents, if they want more insight into what a record book really looks like if you're first time, I encourage them to come into the office and help judge record books, so you can see record books of different age divisions. You can see the senior record book compared to a junior record book and vice versa. Are there any questions?
What time will the record book review be at the county office?
We usually have it at 6:30, so between 6:30 and 7. Just depending on how many responses we get, we might start earlier. And it's more as a come as you go, so it was not like you can come, as early as you want or as late as you want. We usually try to hold it for 2-hour period. So you come as you go. So you come, we talk, and then when we're done, you kind of leave. So it's not like it won't be similar to this where it's a whole presentation. But we usually have it at night between 6:30 and 7 o'clock.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No, that's it.
So we have 6 minutes before the call ends. So if there's no other questions, I'm going to go ahead and in the chat. So there's no questions.
I have one quick question.
You have a quick question? Okay.
You said that the other community service involvement outside of 4-H goes in the other, in the non-4-H activity section, right?
Yes, ma'am. So anything you participate in outside of the 4-H program, whether it be leadership, community service, or just anything in general, that's all gonna go in the non-4-H section.
Okay. And then for the other 4-H projects, if a student, this is like her second year in 4-H, so she hasn't participated but in one project. So how would you encourage them to do other projects within 4-H?
So whatever her project, like I was saying, whatever her project is, she can participate. Like you can do a photography, you can take a photo of it. By just looking at the categories for photography, whatever it is, I'm pretty sure there's something that she can fit in the photography, or she can do like a presentation on it, like a public speaking presentation. So she can either have a club meeting or volunteer at school to give a presentation over her project. And those two different projects would be photography and public speaking. So that's for a way for her to add 2 additional projects to her already main project.
Okay. Yeah, because it ties into, so she's in riflery, which is under shooting sports. So she goes back to the Girl Scouts and encourage the girls about riflery and talk to them about gun safety and her
So
riflery
she would
experience.
record those experiences, and then she would say that one of her project areas is public speaking, and she
Okay.
would record those experiences under public speaking.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
So there's no
And
more questions.
that's it. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you guys for joining me. If you have any questions, you can always give the office a call. I'm able to be reached at the office or email. But if that's all we have, we'll go ahead and say good night.
All right. Good night. Have a good night. Thanks again.
Bye.
Bye-bye.